Hey there, Everyday Conman here, but for those who are watching, you probably know me as the kid who sits in front of the class but doesn't really talk anyway. Basically, coming at you with part of the presentation. Woohoo! So guess what we're talking about? We're obviously talking about musical history because I kind of explained that already in the title of what you watched. Back in the prehistoric times, people found flutes. And they were made out of bones. There's also the, I'm not even trying to pronounce that, babe flute. That was carved from a cave bear femur? Basically, there's a lot of instruments that have been found, but not a lot of them are about poetry, so let's skip forward a bit. There are multiple references in the Bible. I mean, if you've ever gone to church of any kind, you've probably sang some kind of song. Of course, we move on forward into the Middle Ages. This is kind of where chanting came involved with the Roman Catholic churches and all of that jazz, and that's awesome. This also started leading into the Renaissance music era, kind of surviving the dark Middle Ages kind of area. There were a lot of composers and singers that made a lot of musical compositions that were really sacred back then, like Giovanni or Thomas Morley or Orlan de Lassus. On to classicism. The classical period was about 1750 to 1830, and now we're kind of getting into a lot of big and pretty cool things. The main style was kind of homophony, where the melody and the accompaniment were clearly distinct two different things. One of the most evolutionary steps made in the classical period was the development of public concerts. That's right. You can blame all that on the classical period. Thanks a lot, guys. Now not only can I pass out while I'm singing, but I can pass out in front of 80,000 people. Some of the best known composers of classicism are Bach, Gluck, Mozart, Beethoven, those guys, you know, the ones you hear about all the time. Romanticism kind of turned into more passionate and expressive pieces from the classical era, kind of more deeper truths and human feelings and all the emotional stuff that women love. The 1800s is kind of given thanks to Beethoven and Schubert. They introduced a more dramatic and expressive style. Where Beethoven kind of started off, we later had people like hang on, let's try another. Mahler. Those kind of people use more kind of chords and dissonance to make more tension and, well, good music. I'm not saying this was bad, I'm just saying these were good. They kind of brought in theater music too, and opera and musical comedy and all kind of other forms of musical theater. Asian cultures, please don't hate on me, this is actually how it's listed. Generally coming from Arabia, East, Central, South, Southeast, all of Asia basically. There's a lot of Chinese classical music, Chinese art music, kind of a history stretching over 3,000 years. It has its own unique systems of musical notation and tuning and pitch and instruments. It's basically an entirely new style. Now we're on to the big guys, the 20th century and the 21st century. There was a ton of increase in music listening when the radio gained a lot of popularity in phonographs. The focus of art music was kind of characterized by exploration of new rhythms, styles, and sounds. From there we had jazz, and jazz was the big turn of events, and that kind of grew into rock music. Jazz kind of inspired the blue notes, the improvisation, polyrhythm, syncopation, and of course the swinging notes. From early development to the present, jazz has always incorporated music from the 19th and 20th century. American popular music, I guess as you'd call it. Rock music is the other kind of genre that really kind of hit the big stream. You got rock and roll, rockabilly, blues, country music, all that kind of good stuff with the electric and acoustic guitar, the drum set, the bass guitar, the keyboard, the organ, piano, synthesizers, saxophones even. All that good stuff that we all know and love today. Of course, this kind of breaks up into a huge variety of music actually. Kind of goes into pop and rap and hip hop and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of cool how it just breaks off into all those things, isn't it? No, I'm just being mean. So that's a brief history of music. For brief history of lyrics, it's kind of the same story. There was poetry, there was lyrics, it kind of broke up into a million other things like limericks, etc., all that kind of stuff, and so that all broke up and it was really cool. Awesome. Let's get out of here. Hey, you should probably close out of this window and continue with your project because all this is going to do is waste time. But of course, if you're still watching this, then you're probably part of the class and you've probably seen the back of my sweatshirt, meaning you're visiting this. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for checking me out. Of course, there's another video on the screen. That video actually has to do with this class, writing a paper. Oh my god, it was so much pressure and so much work. I'm so happy I got that done, but I didn't bring it. Ah!